Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public information session for Phase 1. We're in pre-remediation for Phase 1 at the Niagara Falls storage site. Now let me introduce you to Colonel Milliman. He's the commander of the Buffalo District. He is a Western New York native, and he's a West Point grad and is now our commander at the district. So please, sir, welcome to the podium.
Great turnout, so thank you for being here and participating in this public information session with the Buffalo District. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to recognize some of our partners that are here with us tonight. Obviously, a project of this magnitude isn't done solely with the Buffalo District. It takes a community, and as a result of that, we have several representatives here supporting us this evening. So we already mentioned, but we have a large representation from the Department of Energy with Legacy Management. We also have elected officials with us. We have the DEC. We have the Department of Health, the Tuscarora Nation, and obviously several members of the community here this evening. In addition, I want to go ahead and introduce a few of the key members of our team here with the Buffalo District and go ahead and get them to raise their hand when I do. So one of our project manager out here is Brent Laspada. He's over here on my left, and obviously he's been with the Corps for a long time and is a key member of the team up here. I also want to take this moment to introduce Jeff Hall, who's our technical lead out here for the Integrated Technical Office at Niagara Falls Storage Site to help deliver this project. Along with Neil out there, we have several other professional engineers that support the team out there, and that really gets me into a couple of my points down the road. So the slide in front of you here is the grayish-brown color. That's the district boundary for the Buffalo District. That's the area of responsibility that we have. So as you can see, it goes up to, well, you can see here, Lake Ontario, but it goes up along the St. Lawrence Seaway to the northern boundary of New York. And then it goes all the way west to Toledo there in Ohio. We basically are responsible for the watershed that flows into the lower Great Lakes. So that's kind of why the shape's there. This is essentially the start of the Genesee River. So if you've been out to Letchworth State Park or Mount Morstam, that's the start of the river in PA and flows north. In Western New York, you can see here we have 4 FUSRAP projects that we're really working on here with the Buffalo District. There's others that have been closed out in the past, but the 4 that we have remaining, you see up there. So we have, obviously, tonight we're talking about Niagara Falls Storage Site. Last Thursday, we had another public information meeting on the Seaway project. Today, we were meeting with our DOE partners to talk about the Tonawanda landfill that we are going to be returning to them in the near future as part of the legacy management with the DOE. And then we also have the Cotero site that's going to be coming online over the next couple of years. So that's kind of the New York footprint. We have a couple more in Pennsylvania and then a couple out in Ohio and one out in Indiana as well. So with that, what I want to say is those 9 projects lead to us having several experts in the district that focus in particular on nuclear remediation and the FUSRAP program as a whole. So to say our team, I believe, is very competent, but also brings a lot to the team on how to deliver this. So with that, before we get to the point where we're actually putting shovels in the ground and remediating this site, we want to go ahead and have this opportunity to communicate with the audience and the community that we have here tonight to go ahead and explain some of the things we're doing to go ahead and deliver this project. So first, our number 1 priority on doing any project like this is safety. And as we clean up these sites, the main priority we use in order to make decisions and deliver this program is to go ahead and protect human health and the environment. And that is the goal of this mission, this project in its entirety. We do that through technical experts that deliver a quality project with integrity. And as a result of some of the work we've done in the past, we've turned over a few already to the DOE, but we have a long way to go, particularly on this project. So yes, tonight we're going to talk about the start, but also want to go ahead and ensure that everyone understands this is a multi-year project that's going to take some time to deliver, to do it in a safe manner and with the standards that we intend to achieve. So with that safety focus mission that we're going to deliver here, we have an integrated technical office, like I mentioned, of several professionals, and that state agency cooperation that's going to assist us in delivering this project. So with that, on my presentation, I'm going to go ahead and close my comments and turn it over to the experts. So I'm sure that's why you're here tonight, to talk with some of the people you may have in that poster session at the beginning. We'll also have an opportunity to do that on the end. So if you have a couple questions at the conclusion of our presentation, you can circle back. But the folks over here on my left, your right, are absolutely the folks who are going to help deliver the solution that we're looking to deliver to the community here. So with that, Brent Laspada, floor is yours.
Yeah, for tonight, what we're going to get into here for phase one, the big messaging that we want to come across with is want to let you know what we're doing, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it safely. Though that'll be basically the theme of all the things we talked through today. I know that's been some of the themes of the posters that everybody's been going through. And just going through our agenda here for the balance of plant. Phase one of remediation, we're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to talk about the remediation activities, air monitoring, and transportation. And also, before we get into that, I'll give a rundown of how we're looking with phases 2 and 3 for the site. Next slide. Okay, so overall, NFSS has 3 remedial phases. We have the one we're talking about tonight, which is the phase 1. That's the areas outside of the interim waste containment structure. That's what we're cleaning up this year. And then the other 2 phases, the yellow here is where within the IWCS is the high activity waste. And then the rest of the green portion of the IWCS is the lower activity waste within the IWCS. These 2 phases here are currently in a remedial design, and we're working through that now. So the headliner tonight is this remedial action here, but this is something we're concurrently working on, and this is a lot of work going on, but a lot of great progress is being made on both fronts. So, next slide. So just touching in on where we are with the design for phases 2 and 3. We're currently working through our 60% design. We're on track to award our 90 and 100% design in fiscal year 25. And the schedule, or the design is on schedule to be complete by 2027. And the big takeaway here is that once we're done with this remedial design, we're going to combine that with the work that we do with phase 1, and that's going to allow us to go in and start working on our acquisition process for the phase 2 and 3 remediations, which is the big headliner for this project. That's the high activity waste we're going to be going after. So this is just kind of orient you around what we're working on, and then actually I got one more slide before we get back into the phase 1 remediation. Just want to note that the environmental surveillance program we've been doing for years will continue. As we get into doing remediation, the program might be modified, or will be modified as we go through, as the site's making changes. But we are still going to monitor air, groundwater, surface water, and sediments. And we will continue our process of sampling those and then sharing those results with the community. And then just keep testing, as this program was put in place, to keep testing that the IWCS is performing as expected and as it has. So this will continue as we can get further into our remedial activities. So back to the headliner for tonight, phase 1. This is the exciting thing. We're going to have shovels in the ground this year. This is just going through the schedule here. We're going to have our air monitoring, pre-remediation air monitoring in May. The contractor will be mobilizing to the site in May. Real field work won't start until June when we start getting into our building investigations. And then this is I would say is the headliner, the thing I would draw a bullseye around. It's the active remediation from the months of July to January. That's when we're going to be most active pulling material out of the site. Materials like contaminated soils, concrete, groundwater. Trucks will be coming out of the site in this time frame. So this is when we're really going to be making hay on the clean out of the site. And then we'll be doing that until January, where we restore. And that restoration is going to be based on confirmatory sampling. This is a total clean out for this area around the IWCS. So we're lined up for January, and then a closeout report by February. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass the mic over to Riley Carey. He's going to talk about some of the work that's going to go on in the field.
Hi, everyone. I'm Riley Carey. I'm the project health physicist for Niagara Falls Storage Site. Over the next 3 slides, I'm just going to be sort of summarizing what our actual activities are going to be looking like this year. We have it broken down into 3 general sort of activities. So before we start remediating anything, per our record of decision for the site, we've identified several legacy building foundations from past activities on the site. So before we do anything, we're going to be doing some characterization investigations on these. Essentially just determine, is there any residual materials that were left behind on or underneath these foundations. Anything that we identify as containing contamination will be slated for removal later on in the summer. Alongside with that, some of our deeper excavations across the site, we're going to be doing some pre-characterization waste sampling, essentially just giving us a better grounds on what our actual concentrations range from, more so where it is, just to help with waste disposal determinations that we make later on in the year. On some of the pictures here, you can see just routine core samplers are going to be punching holes through the concrete, collecting soil samples underneath it, and then just evaluating these to see where any contamination might be identified. So once this is completed, we'll advance into our actual remediation. So any foundations that are identified to contain contamination will be demolished and then removed from the site along with the rest of the contaminated materials. It's essentially what you might see on the top right on the slide here. After that, we'll be moving on to the excavations of all of our just generic soils across the site. Most of these contamination areas are fairly shallow, within 0 to 6 inches for the most part. Some of them extend a little deeper, 10, 15 feet in some of our deeper areas. All of these will be, stockpiled on site. They'll be sampled and they'll be analyzed for waste disposition purposes, and they'll be properly loaded into shipping containers and trucks like this, and then shipped off-site and out of state for final disposition. Throughout the process, we'll likely be generating some wastewaters. On the bottom left, you can see a frac tank in the back, 21,000 container, plus or minus. Essentially, we'll just be, consolidating this wastewater material, storing it on site, evaluating to see, what is present in the wastewater before we make any disposition determinations for that. Anything that's determined to be hazardous, like the soils, will be shipped off-site to a properly permitted facility. And then finally, once the contaminated materials are removed from the site, we'll be performing our confirmatory sampling. This is essentially just to ensure that we're actually meeting our remediation goals we set out to achieve. So we'll be sampling the sidewalls and the floors of all of our excavations, essentially just bounding, ensuring that everything that remains on the site is well within the release limits that we've established for the project. Once that's been determined, we can confirm that we've removed what we've set out to remove. We're going to be bringing in imported clean fill from the surrounding area, backfilling these, returning them to original grade, reseeding, and then essentially setting the stage for the future remediations over the next several years for the IWCS. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Jim Stokowski, our environmental engineer, to talk about some of our air monitoring that we're going to be doing throughout the year.
Good evening, everyone. As the commander and Brent mentioned, one of the critical aspects of our performing this work this year and doing the remediation is going to be safety. And air monitoring is an important aspect of assuring safety for our workers on site, and also to assure that we don't spread contamination out into the community while we're doing this work. So what I'm going to be talking about is the air monitoring program that's going to be performed while we're doing this Phase 1 remediation this summer and autumn. The air monitoring is going to start 30 days prior to the contractor's mobilization. And that'll be coming up next month where they'll start actually doing that work. The purpose of that is to get a background set of data, ambient conditions, before we actually start moving dirt and doing work on the site. After the mobilization occurs and when we start doing remediation, that air monitoring is going to continue all throughout the active work on site. So it's going to be background monitoring 30 days before the contractor comes on site, and then all throughout the remediation activity. There's going to be 2 phases or 2 components to the air monitoring, those being work zone monitoring and perimeter monitoring. The illustration here, or the aerial photo, shows different work areas of the site, and what we'll be doing when we do the balance of plant remediation essentially is isolated areas throughout the site where we're going to be digging up contaminated soil and cleaning it up. Well, that work zone monitoring is going to move with the construction activity. It's going to be monitoring right at the work area, work surface area. Purposes of that are to assure safety of our workers and our people on site. It also gives us a measure of early warning, if you will. If we do get elevated measurements of the parameters that I'll talk about on the next slide, we can take measures to change their work activities, add engineering controls, maybe add more personal protective equipment. The brunt of that really being is that we don't spread contamination out into the community or that we don't expose anyone. Second phase of our second part of the monitoring is going to be on the perimeter of the site. And we're going to have 4 stations located around the site, and they're illustrated by those red circles shown on the figure. So there's going to be one monitor on each side of the site. We're also going to have a background monitor located west of the site. And that's going to be to really assure that we have no contamination and make sure that that's getting out into the community and off the site. Along with this work zone monitoring and perimeter monitoring, we're going to set up a meteorological station. It's going to be set up in the south end of the site near our construction support area. We're going to monitor wind speed and direction, temperature, barometric pressure, and relative humidity. That data is used, we use that data to interpret and assess what the air monitoring results provide us to a degree. The next slide provides additional details on these 2 phases of the monitoring that I was talking about. First, work zone monitoring. What are we monitoring for? We're going to monitor for radionuclides, and those consist of thorium, radium, and uranium. We're also going to monitor for particulate in the air, or which maybe people will relate to as dust in the air. And we're going to monitor for volatile organic compounds or volatile organic chemicals, which is one of the contaminants that we're going to be cleaning up here also on the site. That monitoring is going to be conducted continuously as the contractor is doing the remediation work. So, for example, if they're excavating, they're on site for 8 or 10 hours a day, that'll be a constant monitoring activity right at the work area for that period. Typically, there's going to be a technician, 1 or 2 technicians that are at the work area doing this monitoring and interpreting the results. It's going to be continuous monitoring during remediation activities. The results are for the particulate and for the volatile organic chemicals. That's going to be measured on a real-time basis. We have instruments that give us a real readout. They'll be documented in the field, and then we make decisions and adjustments if necessary based on those results. The radionuclides, we're going to collect particulate samples on a filter. We're going to have a pump and a filter in the field that collects particulate samples. That sample will be that particulate will be analyzed for radiation at the end of the day or the first thing next morning. So that'll be like a daily analysis that's done. Again, that work zone monitoring serves 2 purposes: worker health and safety, and also an early warning system to make sure things aren't going off-site or if we need to make changes. Second part is going to be site perimeter monitoring, and those were the 4 stations that you saw on the previous slide. Those have low volume samplers. It's similar to what we're doing in the work zone monitoring. We have a filter where we're pumping air through the filter and we collect particulate that's in the air. We're going to be analyzing those for their radium, thorium, and uranium, same as what we're doing in the work areas. Those samplers are run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So essentially, during remediation activities, they're always going to be running. We change the filter media once a week, and then immediately after changing that filter media, those samples are analyzed for the radionuclides. So that's a continuous operation. And in a nutshell, that's it. And then, like as I mentioned earlier, the meteorological monitoring and the wind speed and direction, we use that information to interpret how's the wind blowing. If we have an elevated result, is it downwind, upwind, so on and so forth, with respect to the remediation activities. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brent, and Brent's going to talk about the transportation routes and how we're going to haul the waste off-site.
All right, so I think one of the common themes through all the slides so far is that safety is obviously tied into everything we're doing. I think safety is the backbone of the project, and that's our approach to it. It's worth mentioning between Riley and Jim's conversational pieces and then what we're going to talk about transportation. We should note that earlier today, we had a meeting with all the local first responders to kind of go through, give them a rundown of things we're doing, things we're talking about now, so they have an understanding of what's going on within the site, if anything was to occur, if they needed to come in, and then also for we'll get into transportation. They give a picture of what the material coming out of the site and the situation is, so that they're aware. So the Corps, we're leaving no stone unturned when it comes to safety. So I just wanted to mention that as going through this process, that's something we're building in to our process. So getting to the transportation plan, this is kind of going down the list here. As I mentioned before, most of the truck traffic you're going to see on the roads is going to be between the months of July and January. We're estimating about 25 trucks per week will be coming out of the site. Every truck that comes out of the site will be washed and decontaminated as it does. The trucks will all be lined for maximum safety of transporting the material. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of the plan. These are all the measures that we're going to be taking. So every truck coming out of the site, everyone can rest assured that we're taking all the necessary precautions. And then just for here, the route itself, hopefully everybody got an opportunity to go back and see the poster or talk it through a little bit for more of the details. I will just highlight here that based on conversations, previous meetings, the request to not take the material past the schools and then also not go through the Tuscarora Nation's land. This approved plan from the Corps does adhere to both of those while complying with all federal, state, and local regulations for transporting waste. Like I said, this is more of a conversational piece for the visiting the poster for more detail, but I just wanted to highlight that this is taking into account all the conversations and points that we've recorded over the years as we've gotten to this point. So. Pass the mic back over to Amy to talk outreach.
You can see here by this chart, we have a lot of conversations coming up with y'all to make sure that you're kept informed of the activities that we have going on site in your backyard, just so that you feel comfortable with what we're doing, understand what it is we're doing, and if you have any questions, the people in this room are available to you to answer those questions. You can see here tonight, is line item 1, we're at this pre-remediation public information session. And then in July, we're going to be sending out the proposed plan for the Low or the Lake Ontario Ordinance Works proposed plan. And then in August of this year, we're planning on having a public hearing to get some input on that plan as we start to bring that to final. And then next on our list is the Niagara Falls Storage Site Vicinity Property H Prime. We're going to be sending out that proposed plan in October of this year and planning a public hearing in November of this year. And then we have Vicinity Property X. We have a site inspection report that we're going to be sending out in October of this year, to kind of give you guys an idea of what that report and then investigation results are. And then looking at spring of next year, we're going to be having another public information session like this to talk about Phase 2 and what we're going to be doing activities-wise during Phase 2. And then our final slide here, so that you can keep informed in between all of these meetings that we're going to be having. We have a new website down here, which I'm continuing to update on getting all of our files that were on our old site migrated onto our new site. So please visit often, as those are going to be going up over the next week or two. Those documents are going to be reloaded on there. And then if you have a smartphone, please take a picture or scan this QR code, and that'll bring it up on your phone, our new website. And if you need to get a hold of anybody and ask specific questions, I monitor this 800 number and the FUSRAP email address on a daily basis. So please, if you have any questions after this meeting or just in general, email me at that address or call me at the 800 number, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And with that, I want to say thank you again for coming. And also on the back table where you signed in, there's a half sheet that has this exact same information on it. Please grab one of those on your way out. And if you our folks are still here at the posters, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that you kind of formulated while hearing this presentation. So thank you again for coming. Grab a cup of coffee and a cookie. Thanks.